In this video, I'll show you how to create your first Flex project, and then I'll give you a tour of the Flex Builder interface. To get started, we're going to create a Flex project. The nature of a Flex project is that it manages Flex application development. When you create the project, you'll set certain properties of the project, including whether you want the project to manage web or desktop applications, and whether you want the project to interact with a remote server, such as Lifecycle Data Services, BlazeDS, or ColdFusion. To create your first Flex project, select File, New, Flex Project. This is the new Flex project wizard. Each project requires a name. The name must contain letters, numbers, or underscore characters, and can't include spaces or other special characters. I'll be following a very strict project naming protocol for all of these demonstrations, but for your actual applications, you can name the projects really anything you like. I'll be naming my project starting with chapter, then the number of the chapter, and then begin. Later on, when we get into later chapters, you'll be importing chapters that have beginning code, and the names of the projects always follow this model. Your project location can be anywhere on disk. The default, though, is to create a folder with the same name as the project itself, and then to create that folder underneath your workspace directory. Again, this is not a technical requirement, and you can place your project anywhere on disk that you like. Next, you select an application type, a web application or a desktop application. If you select web application, the applications in this project will load into the Flash player running within a web browser. And the goal then is to design an application that will download from a web server at runtime and run on the user's desktop in the context of the browser. If you select desktop application as the application type, then this project will be designed to deploy applications running on Adobe Air, the Adobe Integrated Runtime. These applications are designed to run locally as native applications running on Windows or the Mac. For the most part, in this video series, we'll be using web applications to do the demonstrations, but just know that most of the techniques that I'll be showing you can be used for either web applications or desktop applications. For the server technology, you have many choices, including ASP.NET, ColdFusion, J2EE, and PHP applications. For most of the videos in this series, we won't be using application servers, but I will show you a couple of little tricks along the way when you want to deal with .NET or ColdFusion. From this screen, click the Next button, and now you'll select a folder known as the Output folder. The Output folder is where the debugged version of your application is placed. Now, if you've worked with Flex Builder 2, you may remember that the Output folder in the older version of the software included both the debug and what we now call the release version of the application. Now in Flex Builder 3, the output folder that you create during project creation is called bin debug and only contains the debug version of the application. Creating a deployment version of the application, now known as a release version, is a new and separate step in Flex Builder 3, and I'll be showing that to you later. The output folder name really can be anything you like, but we'll be accepting the default setting of bin debug. I'll click the Next button, and on this screen, I'm asked for all the information I need to finalize the creation of the Flex project. I'll be talking about source and library paths later on in this video series. I'll skip that for now. The main source folder is the name of a folder in which you want your source code to be stored. In Flex Builder 2, the main source folder was set to a blank string, meaning that the project root and the source code root were the same folder. In Flex Builder 3, there's a new best practice recommendation that your source code goes into a separate subdirectory, and the default name of this directory is src. You also have the opportunity at this point to select the main application file name. A project can contain multiple applications, but this will be the default application, at least at the beginning of the project creation. You can name your application anything you like. Common names for applications include main.mxml, index.mxml, or descriptive names. For instance, my main application file, when I first get started, is going to be named helloworld.mxml. There are some very important requirements for naming your application file. You can only include letters, numbers, and underscores in the application file name, and you can't include any spaces or special characters. Also, the initial character should always be an alphabetical character. Whether you capitalize the first character or not is really a question of style. I tend to always uppercase the first character of the application file name. I'll be talking more about the reasons behind this, but briefly right now, an application is a class definition. In object-oriented software conventions, class names always have an initial uppercase character. So by using an initial uppercase character in my file names, it reminds me that this is a class definition. For the output folder URL, you can either leave it blank or put in an explicit URL. When you leave it blank, you're telling FlexBuilder that when it launches the application for testing, it should simply load the finished application directly from the hard disk and not expect to look for a web server. If in fact you're running a web server, and the reason to do this would be so you can see exactly what's going to happen at runtime when your users use the application, you should put in a URL that allows the browser to download the application at runtime. For now, we're going to be leaving the output folder URL blank. I'll click Finish, and this will result in creating the project and the new default application, helloworld.mxml. It takes a few moments for the project and application to be created, but once I see the application, I'm now ready to start creating the functionality in my Flex application.